Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, once again, thank you for joining. This is the second episode. This is exciting, don't you think?
Yes, totally. I'm
Okay,
excited for the
okay.
next
Do we
next
need to
episode.
introduce ourselves? You want to go first?
Okay, yeah. My name is Geneva Mercado. I'm an entrepreneur of many things. Uh, what about yourself?
I'm Dio Palencia, and I'm a marketer, community outreach person, director of community programs and local impact in the Bay Area. But among that, a little bit of a milusos, so I do a lot of stuff. But yeah, so I'm glad that this is our second episode and really excited. So we have a really great program for you if you're joining. So thank you so much to be joining Opinion Junkyard. So today our episode is really great, but also like a reflected. And we're going to start with the question, which is also the title of the episode to you. Who are you? And what do you do for work? What do people call you? And what are your responsibilities? And sometimes are you being something that people want you to be and not yourself? So, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like that's
Mhm.
an easy question that obviously takes a lot of time to answer, to really take a look at oneself, and figure out what who you are, what that answer really is, and you can answer it so many different ways. You can think of it from different perspectives, but ultimately it's, who you see yourself to be. So it's a short question but very deep question. That's good.
Yeah, no, it is. And there's actually a lot of studies that have been done on this question, like Carl's Rogers study that he believed that identity is a constant struggle. So, because sometimes you don't develop the potential or you're not who you will be, because sometimes you're either programmed or the social group that you grew up, if you have friends that are one impose or your social network or environment might affect the way that your potential, you might be probably destined to be like a great engineer, uh, a great athlete, great actress, actor. And sometimes because people tell you, no, you should become more a doctor, you should be this, then that might change actually the trajectory of what your potential could have been and
Hmm.
really stop you and become something else that you're not. So I think that's
Yeah.
the risk sometimes when we don't have a strong guidance. And the idea here is just to explore that and pretty much just go from there. But one of the things that I want to congratulate you on the background. Now you're official. You look really great. I'm still a little bit ghetto, so I'm getting there. So as you can see, I have the
We only have
keys.
the budget for one background, so we
Yes.
started with mine.
So, but yeah, so that's pretty much what he talks about it. So what is
Yeah,
your
yeah,
reflection
I
on
mean,
that?
yeah, I think there's a constant struggle between who you are, who you want to be, like you said, who the world wants you to be. And it all starts from when you're a teeny baby, and you're trying to be yourself, but also make others happy by being the person they want to be. And it's a constant struggle
Mhm.
of, okay, deciding, all right, am I going to do this for myself, or am I going to do this for somebody else, or finding that balance in between where you could do it for both parties, and you know make everybody happy. If you're a people pleaser, or if you're not that type of personality, then just make yourself happy, and Who cares about what anybody else thinks?
Yeah. No, no, and that's really important what you just said because the risk when you're people pleaser is that you might lose yourself, you might lose your identity,
Hmm.
and you have the risk if you're dealing with people that are have like a little bit like a control freak or narcissistic tendencies. You know, they can just
Hmm.
literally just mold you, and then you lose yourself. So it's always to have that balance and that self-awareness of who you really
Yeah.
are. And I know our parents and our family try the best to raise us, and you know, we're doing the same thing with our kids. But it is also important to let that opportunity for individuals and to question, you know, simple things, you know, just because someone tells you
Hmm.
that you need to behave this way, you need to accept this, you know, if you have a question or doubt, probably, or a gut feeling, probably you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that's the big question that I feel like you end up spending your whole life trying to figure out. That question is, who are you? Because you're different people from, your young adolescence to your teenage years. I feel like that's probably the biggest
Mm,
jump when you become a teenager and you realize, like, oh, the world isn't all fun and rainbows. And, it is kind of crappy out there sometimes. And at that point, I feel like you have to decide, okay, am I going to be a person who sees the positive in everything, right? The half glass full? Or am I going to be the person who complains and sees everything as negative? The woe
mhm.
is me. And I feel like at that point, you start to shape and then you become one type of person. And then maybe you realize, like, I kind of don't like this person. I think I'm going to switch. And I feel like that's, at your young adulthood, you start to switch maybe to somebody else or continue down the path that, you were already going and say, okay, yeah, I like this person who I'm becoming.
Mhm.
So every like maybe, I don't know, maybe 15 years, I feel like there might be a shift,
Yeah.
of like reassessing yourself to say, okay, I'm going to continue down this path, or like, nah, I don't really like the person that, or maybe the group of friends that I'm now making because of the personality that I have. So I'm going to switch over and do something totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And I think it's a constant evolution, even as growing up, as when you're a baby or you're like a child. I feel that you start your life with negotiating, you know, and trying to test the waters and just
Hmm.
discovering who you are and adjusting in order to survive. And and I noticed that like my siblings, you know, um like my sister and one of my brothers, like my brother will be like, whoa, why she doesn't cook for me? And then my dad will say like, no se te va a caer la mano if you cook. So, you know, trying to give him a lesson that there's nothing wrong. You're both
Yeah.
equal, and you're fully capable of doing an egg or at least something simple, you know, put some
Yeah.
ham into bread or something. And but it also went the other way around. He was also really neutral when my sister was like, well, why he doesn't go and cut some lemons, you know, he's a man. And then my dad will flip the side to the other side and tell her the same thing, you know. It's like, well, no se te van a caer las uñas if you go cut some lemons. So
Yeah.
so so I think is sometimes not having that adjustment or that neutrality is that you don't give the space to the younger kid to really develop and
Yeah.
see that regardless of your biology, your beliefs, and what you like, that you're fully capable of doing anything. And really
Hmm.
that a lot of these principles and a lot of these things are just barriers that people impose that they shouldn't exist, because they're really what they're doing is that they're putting a limit to your potential.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if
Yeah.
that makes any
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's, I feel like, again, that's where it all starts, right? It's like your inner child, um, the decisions you make for yourself as a child before the like, oh, I don't want to do this because that's embarrassing.
Mhm.
I don't want to make this decision in front of my friends because that's embarrassing. It's like once a child starts to feel embarrassed about their actions, I feel like that's when, again, something's happening internally where they're like, okay, how am I going to be perceived? Do I care how I'm perceived? Um, I want to be cool with the cool kids, but I also want to be nice to everybody. That's
Mhm.
where like the predicaments start of these kids' brains just trying to fire off different things of like, okay, yes, I want to be nice. No, I don't want to be nice because they're being mean, so I'm going to be mean too, but then maybe that is making them feel bad and they're like, okay, I didn't like how that felt, you
Mhm.
know? Yeah, it's that constant struggle.
Yeah. No, definitely. And then, and just to put it in a, I guess in a simpler way, there's another great study done by Charles Horton Cooley. It's called looking glass self,
Oh,
pretty much
huh.
yeah, seeing a reflection of you, who the the idea of that concept is to you sometimes you don't become who really you are, but
Hmm.
you become what other people think who you are.
Yeah.
So what kind of like what our grandparents used to say, like if you get around people that steal, you're going to steal. If you are around people that drink, you're going to end up drinking. If you're
Yeah.
around people that really want to better themselves, you're going to be a better version. So I think it sometimes
Hmm.
is it's really that, and not having the skills and the tools to just put some barriers. Yeah, there might be your friends are probably going to be your friends forever or your circle, but
Yeah.
like this is who I am, and here's what the line stops, and it's cool what you guys are doing, but we're not going to agree on every single item.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good way to start the episode, Just um figuring out what are all the good questions that we should be asking ourselves.
Yeah, well, this I mean, this discussion reminds me, I don't know if you're a fan of the rock in español from the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to all the quinceañeras. Yes,
Okay.
they had all
Okay.
the
Well,
all the
well, there's this.
rolas.
So there's this song, right? Duncan Du. There's
Uh-huh.
it's one of the bands, and it talks in Spanish, and I'm going to translate it in English, where it says that in one place on earth, in a
Mhm.
country, in a great country, someone forgot to make sure that no one dies. Someone forgot to tell the child that he's a genius
Mm.
before he dies.
Yeah. Wait,
And
what song is this?
sometime
Why don't I remember any of the song being that deep?
it's called En algún lugar del mundo, so in a place in
Oh,
the world.
okay.
It's a really old song. That's what my brothers and my sister used to hear when I was a kid. So
Oh,
I remember, yeah. So a lot of those songs, like in the early '80s and early '90s, they were like kind of deep,
yeah.
bands from different parts of Latin America, the and then there's another song by another band also too that makes you reflect on your existence. It's called Nacha Pop, and it talks about lucha de gigantes, like
Mm.
how breeding, how you have to fight against traditions, opinions, and people that are trying to mold you, and it's a
Yeah.
constant battle against giants. So very deep song. So it reminds me what we're talking to about in this episode and some of the research
Yeah.
that we did to put this show, and some of those songs are really reflective of that, and I know that a lot of the songs these days they're not as deep. It's just more like
Oh,
rhythm,
no.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
but I mean, even though it was not probably our music, but just hearing it is just crazy to just hear the you know the concept and how deep, now I understand it, but when I used to hear it as a kid, I was like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, it just totally
Um,
went over our heads.
yeah, yeah, because normally when you're like in high school or in college, that's when you really develop the taste of the music that is going to be part of a generation. Before that,
Yeah.
you just go with the flow, whatever your older siblings or your parents or deals or cousins are playing, that's what you hear. But it's really, I think, you're like around 14, 15 when you start developing your own taste
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
songs.
exactly. Younger than that, it's whatever you're forced to listen to while you're cleaning the house on a
Oh yeah.
Saturday morning.
Yes. 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 Yeah. So yeah, and the thing is that sometimes when you don't put barriers or you don't not really clear on who you are, sometimes the people might see you as you're the problem. And it's not, is that you have to become yourself. You have to become
Yeah.
one. And sometimes you have to understand that people sometimes expect you to fail,
Yeah.
and you might shrink, to fit the expectation. And when you should be really embracing who you are and looking for that, and not accepting, um, you know, to people to impose you or try to mold you, and you just have to become
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah, 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 I agree. Yeah, so that's kind of goes in from the, your inner child to now your inner teenager.
Yeah.
Right? So now you're a teenager. Now you've kind of passed that childhood phase of like, oh, okay, I can make decisions for myself. I can kind of be this other person. And now the raging teenage years have arrived, and that's an even bigger, like, I feel like it's like the cartoon from Inside Out, Anger, the one that has the fire, that's
Mm-hmm.
like just teenagers all the time. They're just
Mm-hmm.
constantly
Yeah.
raging, and it's, again, trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to be what my parents say, because that's what the kids do, not the teenagers. The teenagers, I want to speak for myself. I want to make my own decisions. I want to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, being a teenager, you rebel, you're the emotional one, you're the one who just everything feels so intense,
Right.
and now at that point, it's like, okay, now who are you? Which is, I feel like, an even bigger question than asking the child, the inner child in you. Who are you as the inner child?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it also reminds me that 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 sometimes is also the will,
Hmm.
and embracing who you are, even when people don't believe you and when they think that you don't have the talent. I think a good example is Michael Jordan or David Beckham. A lot
Hmm.
of people don't know that they were not in the top of their class. They were not
Yeah.
great athletes in high school, but it was that determination and that will that made him superstars.
Hmm.
Like, Michael Jordan is like, I'm gonna become a professional basketballer, and he will train and practice shooting, in the morning and then really late at night until midnight, to the point that his parents had to bring him inside the house. And Beckham is
Yeah.
really similar. He has a quote that says that, you have to try to shoot towards a goal, because you never know when you're going to score. And if it takes you 1,000 times, you have to do it 1,000 times. And
Yeah.
he was a guy that in his early years, and when he was still a teenager, he will come like 1 week, 1 hour or 2 hours before the training session. And after the training session, he will continue practicing 1 or 2 hours. And then on the weekends, when there was no
Hmm.
one there. So that made him the superstar that he was, the same as Michael
Yeah.
Jordan. And I think it's just not listening or not letting people see that, this is the expectation we have for you. It's like, really, the question is, what is my expectation, and not what others think. What should
Yeah.
I be?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because you think about it, right? Back when they were teenagers, they didn't have social media, they didn't have the internet. they didn't have the presence of all of this technology. So really, like, some people are legit just wired that way to say
Mhm.
like, no, I want to be great at basketball, I want to be great at soccer, and they just followed their instincts, which I think is, a lot. I think people, even kids, don't realize what that little voice inside of you is telling you, like, oh, okay, maybe this is, I should listen to this voice, because I mean, look at them and every other professional, basketball or sports player, or anyone who's was successful at a young age. It was just them following their instincts, not social media, not internet, maybe not even what their parents would say, because their parents are probably like, get inside, you're out there too long. But
Mhm.
something inside of them told them, like, no, I want to be really good at this. And it's a good thing they listened to themselves, right? They took their own advice, they listened to their instincts, because look at the great, athlete that they became because they listened to themselves, which is really crazy to think that kids these days, maybe they don't have that opportunity because there is so much influence from social media, from the
Mhm.
internet, from just Googling things, like, can I be good at this? Maybe, the internet's going to say, like, well, no, not really, because the average person isn't that good at this at your age. And maybe
Mhm.
then that's going to be like, oh, wow, okay, so I guess there is no opportunity for me. Whereas like
Mhm.
David Beckham or Michael Jordan didn't have that opportunity to have someone skew their perspective of themselves. They were just like, well, this is what I want to do. I have a passion for it. I'm gonna just go for it. So I feel
Right.
like I wonder if they grew up in the days of social media, if they would still be the great athlete that they were, or if, something would happen where they would be influenced by someone else, and it wouldn't go that route, because
Mhm.
they'd be like, no, my friends don't like it, so I don't like soccer anymore, or,
Mhm.
just listening to what other people have to say
Yeah.
around them.
Yeah. No, no, totally, totally. And really the question and the reflection here is, are we living our truth
Hmm.
as ourselves, or are we living a reflection from what either the society or environment or what someone else wants us really to be?
Yeah.
That's really the reflection here.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's for sure. And again, like, I think, teenagers, right? If we're talking about kids at that age right now, think about the word reflection, right?
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, their reflection is everywhere, right? Their reflection is on social media. Their reflection is at school with their friends. Their reflection is at home, amongst their family. And then their reflection is finally, at home just amongst themselves. And to be able to navigate life and keep a positive perspective of yourself throughout all those avenues, like, that's really hard, and now that I
Mhm.
think about it, it's crazy that there isn't like a class or something at school that's like how to navigate with social media. They talk about
Mhm.
bullying and, dare and all these other programs, but these programs were all set in the 80s, and where there was no
Mhm.
internet, there was no social media. But it's like there should be a dare program for social media and internet
Mhm.
things to help
Well,
kids navigate that.
yeah. And but the other problem with that too is that we're not teaching our kids to be savvy. I just feel that
Yeah.
sometimes they're so afraid of being cancel, cancel
Hmm.
culture, and then when they
Oh,
go to other countries, even as a tourist, they're shocked.
yeah.
And an example would be Latin America or Australia, where people make fun of themselves and each other, but
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah. That's
bullying. I
yeah.
mean, there's a difference between bullying, they'll tell you, and then there's difference between just making fun of themselves. Like in Mexico, people will call it carrilla. So it's just like just making fun of each other, and
Yeah.
having a good time and then laughing. And it's just, I feel that sometimes kids don't have that opportunity, and then they're just really, they have a difficult time.
Yeah.
Another thing that comes in mind was when one of my girls was young. They're teens now, so you can imagine what I'm going through.
Oh, so you're living through it right now.
Yeah.
You're like, let me tell
So
you what happens when they're teenagers.
yes. So when one of them was like 6 or 7, she was going to a dance academy. So she liked it when she was little. Obviously, when she got to a certain age, she was like, "No, I don't want to do it no more," and that was her decision. But the point is that she was in an academy that it was just more like kind of like classical music, or more like ballet,
Okay.
and they were doing an exchange with another school, and but it was more traditional, like Chinese, and she didn't want to do it.
Hmm.
And I and the teacher asked her why, and she says like, because I don't like it, and I'm not Chinese. I feel that I shouldn't be doing it. I just don't feel it.
Yeah.
And the teacher called me and said like, I think she has been, you know, racist. I don't think she's been racist, but let's talk to her. And then I
Yeah.
asked her like, are you being
Hmm.
racist? Are you?
Yeah.
And then she says like, no, I just don't feel doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like if her her reflection at that age was like, it's like if you ask me if I want a certain type of food, but I don't like it. It's not, I didn't have against it. I just don't like the food. So that's where I'm
Yeah.
coming from. So to me, that was like, I was really proud of her because at that age, she was able in a really simple way to
Hmm.
say why she didn't want to do it, but it was not because of prejudice or anything else. And I think that's one of the things that these days we don't let kids be themselves, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's not prejudice. It's just really, it's just a choice. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say that that's good for her that she was able to speak up for herself and didn't feel like she had to, like, oh, okay, they're having this talk with me. I guess let me just do it so that it makes them happy, right? Like you as the
Hmm.
dad, the teacher, and the teacher, she was able to, explain to you in very simple 6-year-old way, like, no, I just don't want to do it. In other words, like, don't force me because I'm telling you why I don't like it. So
Hmm.
that's good that she was able to stick up for herself. So, and I feel like, again, back in the day, you know, I don't feel like we, or at least me, if my mom were to say, like, why don't you want to do this? I'd be like, okay, fine, I'll just do it to not make you mad, you know?
Hmm.
But maybe this younger generation, they're able to use their voice more than we were to be
Hmm.
like, I'm not going against what you're saying, mom. I'm just saying that I don't want to do it because of this reason, There's
Hmm.
more room for explanation, I guess, where back in the day it was like, well, you just
Hmm.
have to do it because that's what your parents said. It's like, okay, even if I don't like it, I just have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where the tension between, I guess, the past and the future comes.
Yeah.
But yes, not only in yourself, but also among generations too,
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure. For
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I feel like our generation maybe is a little more lenient on giving our kids a voice. Whereas our
Mhm.
parents were like, no, what do you need a voice for? Like, I'm your parent. I'm your voice. You need a voice? I'm right here.
Yeah,
It's like, okay.
yeah. Well, it's like when my yeah, you're right. It's like if you compare when you were a child, when your mom used to cook, she didn't cook for you guys.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My mom didn't cook for us. She cooked for
Yeah.
whatever my dad wanted, and if you
Yeah.
like it, good. If not, her saying was, whenever you're hungry, you'll eat.
Yeah, exactly.
And us is a little bit different. We ask the girls, when they were little,
Yeah.
what do you want? And then
Yeah.
we'll either do that or have multiple types of food, that
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, you're willing to, again, like, hear them out, take their take their feelings and their thoughts and their words into consideration,
Hmm.
at every step, even, when it comes to just a meal,
Hmm.
where usually a meal would be like, no, this is what you're eating and that's what it is. Like you said, you don't want to eat it. Okay, well, the food's in the fridge, leftovers in the fridge. When you get hungry, it's still gonna be there.
Yeah. 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 No, and it's totally true. I mean, there's the other thing comes in mind will be um, something that Sigmund Freud said that he strongly believed that we're deeply shaped and even trapped by our past, meaning that sometimes where we grow up, we still stuck there. Like
Hmm.
a good example, like my dad. He left his village in his little ranchito in Mexico when he was
Yeah.
like a teen. Met my mom, went to another state, and then came to the U.S. and then went back 30 years after, and he was so stuck that he still wanted to see the village the way it was when um when he left, and when he came back it was a shock for him, and
Yeah.
he had a hard time accepting. He even cried,
Yeah. I can
and
see that.
and it's just like everything is so changed, no one
Yeah.
recognizing it. And I tell him like, well, it's 30 years. People know you more where my mom is from. Even your accent changed the way you speak Spanish. You
Yeah.
don't speak like your state. You speak more like someone from Jalisco, So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so sometimes you can be trapped in the past and
Hmm.
still think, that that's the way it should be, and you're not being open to see that things can change. And yes, some things are
Hmm.
going to be similar or they're going to be there, but that doesn't mean that every single thing is going to be the same, and you shouldn't be trapped in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's also where adulthood and then looking back into your young adulthood years to say, it's close enough in range to say, like, okay, this is, I didn't quite like, having to deal with this, or I didn't like
Hmm.
having to deal with this, or I do like that, therapy was a word that wasn't frowned upon. I did like that. And then you start to take little things, that you will end up using for your own kids to
Hmm.
say, like, okay, my young adult years were either great because of these things or were not great because of these things. And then I feel like as an adult, and even a parent more so, you realize how to sway your kids, or maybe sometimes not even sway them, because a lot of times I feel like myself, I had to, even though my parents are like, don't do that. Te
Hmm.
vas a quemar. Don't do this. My personality was like, okay, I understand, que me voy a quemar, I'm going to burn myself, but I have to do it myself to know, like, okay, I did it. I did it my way. I still got burned, but I was careful and I learned
Hmm.
my lesson. That was just the personality that I was. I wasn't the type that was like, "Oh, my mom said no. Okay, pues no." It
Hmm.
was like, "Okay, well, why no?"
Hmm.
Let me do it so that I could figure it out. I could learn firsthand why you don't want me to do this, or why I shouldn't go down that road,
Hmm.
and then be like, "Oh, okay, this is why." Now I get it. Now I get it. I see it with my own eyes. I can decide for myself. Like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to go that route. And then, also I think going back, being able to go back to my parents to be like, yeah, you know what, mom, you were right. I didn't like that, you know. And then, of course, the typical Mexican mom, ya ves, te dije, I told you. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
I know, it's fine. You can tell me I told you so. I don't mind it. But I had to learn for
Hmm.
myself, which I feel
Yeah.
like that's, when you're a young adult, you start learning those lessons and pushing those boundaries, and that helps you hopefully decide, the route that you want to go in life
Yeah.
as you approach adulthood.
Yeah. And no, you're totally right. I think it's good that we have therapy for the
Mhm.
kids.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I just feel that when I was growing up, and probably when you were growing up too, is that uh kind of like what the comedian Marcelo says that, when he told his mom that he that
Oh my god, that is
he,
such a good show. I just saw the
yeah,
one on
yeah,
Netflix. Oh,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
so good. It's
yeah,
so good.
that he says that that he has AED, and the mom says like, no, you cannot have it. So very similar to, I think, what my grandparents used to say when someone says like, es que está un poquito mal de la cabeza, he's a little bit crazy, and then my grandfather says like, no, with the smack in the head it will go away. And then he
Yeah.
had a saying that there's no and I'm going to translate this directly from Spanish into English. He used to say there's no drug abuser, no drunk person, and no crazy person that will burn themselves or throw themselves into a hole deep,
Mhm.
and if they did, it's because then really they were really messed up. So his point
Yeah.
is that 90% of the people, what they need is discipline, yeah,
Yeah.
and they need to experience the hard way,
Mhm.
kind of like you were sharing, in order to really create that conscious, and it's like, okay, this is not right, and
Yeah.
have that. I just have the feeling that these days you're over a lot of the kids are over in power, and they don't know, and they
Yeah.
don't measure the consequences, and that could be a problem too.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's also a big thing culturally because a lot of the things like he talks about in the in his special where he's like I wasn't able to do a lot of the things and say a lot of the things that people of other cultures were allowed to do and say to their parents. Like,
Hmm.
the mom says something to the kid and the kid goes like, "No, I don't want to." And the comedian Marcelo's like, "Ollie, you decide which culture that kid came from because it wasn't a Latino culture because the parents would not
Yeah,
allow that to go down, which I
yeah.
feel like there still needs to be that, right? And the
Hmm.
Mexican mom in me will be like, I'm gonna give you your boundaries, I'm gonna show you the ropes, but you still don't disrespect me. you know,
Yeah.
let's still focus on respect and all of those things. And I think again, that kind of helps them grow into um young adults that are well rounded and still know how to
Hmm.
respect other people, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day you can't just be wild and free out in this world and doing and saying anything you want with no the consequences. And I feel like some cultures, because they don't want to hurt the kids' feelings and like, oh, it's okay. Let's sit and let's talk about it. It's like, no, there's times where you sit and talk about it as a parent. And there's other
Hmm.
times where un guamazo is gonna say more than anything
Yeah.
to that kid
Well,
to let them know they messed up.
and the thing is that even the educational system is different. Like in Mexico, yes, they have done a lot of changes, but still, if you don't pass grade, they won't pass you. And
Yeah.
and I have a cousin that is a professor, and when he's grading the exams,
Uh-huh.
and the kids don't do well, he literally puts them in Spanish. Burro, estudia más. So stuff like that. So it sounds aggressive, but if you think about it, it's gonna, it's
Yeah.
gonna make the kid think. It's like, okay, it's kind of
Yeah.
like a shock reaction, kind of like when someone throws you cold water and you're like freeze.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes that's what you need. You need that
Yeah.
reaction, and I
Yeah.
think I think that sometimes you need uh to become yourself. Sometimes you need to destroy the old version of yourself, that you've been
Yeah.
programmed,
Yeah.
if you really want to embrace and be really who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. And I think that's where, now going into adulthood, um, you know, are you more suppressed as an adult, or is it just because now you've seen a lot of the world and your vision is a little skewed, not like when you were a child, right? It's like now
Hmm.
you kind of see things and you see consequences and you see things that you're like, oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. and you just start living your life a little bit differently. And I feel like maybe adulthood is the one that lasts the longest, right?
Hmm.
Because there isn't much. Maybe from like adulthood to becoming a parent, maybe
Hmm.
that's the next like step over. At least for me, I could see that being, like, okay, you're an adult, you're dealing with adult things, you're living in your own apartment, you're paying bills, you have a job, and then you're trying to balance, that job with partying with your friends and making bad decisions and making
Hmm.
sure you're making good decisions to make sure you're not, becoming a terrible person and ruining everything that you've worked for. And then from being an adult to being a parent, I feel like that's the next
Hmm.
step that at least I took, that I was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, now I see as a parent, now I see things totally different."
Hmm. No, no, totally. And I think this, really move us into the next segment, which is really the inner child. How
Yeah.
sometimes when we're really uh young, they start telling us, don't do this, that's dumb, or stop acting like that. And sometimes there's no reason. I mean, you
Yeah.
haven't done anything wrong. You just have a lot of energy and you're trying to channel it, versus like if you're behaving bad and you're breaking all the dishes. I mean, it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
And I think and sometimes we forget, what do we used to love doing when we were kids, and sometimes it could be something simple.
Mhm.
And how and why do we lose that as we grow? and,
Yeah.
and and I think that's one of the things, that we cannot suppress our inner child.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important, to just live your life constantly thinking about your inner child. And then even like your teenage self, right? Like, oh, my teenage self would be so proud of who I am right now, or like, wow, my
Hmm.
teenage self would never guess that I would be on a podcast because I was so shy as a teenager. It's like, oh, that would
Uh,
be my teenager self's worst nightmare, is having to
yeah,
just sit and talk to someone.
yeah, no, and I think that's why it's also important to not suppress your inner child and your inner
Hmm.
teenager, and because they're the ones that really carry you to your life. And
Yeah.
when you suppress them, you really stop being yourself, and then you're losing yourself and becoming something really that you're not supposed to, and
Yeah.
probably you're not going to enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, which is probably the kids who then become the young adult. They struggle because maybe they didn't have
Yeah.
someone guiding them, as a child, as a teenager. Which I feel like parents have such a big role in their kids' lives, and if you let them get away with too much as a kid or as a teenager, them now becoming a
Hmm.
young adult is going to be really hard,
Hmm.
because now they're gonna feel like invincible, like, well, I could do whatever I want, and my parent
Yeah.
never told me anything, so like, why do I have to
Hmm.
deal with consequences?
A good example is when even when your parents would used to tell you, I don't want you to go play, or I don't want you to go to the movies, and sometimes you will say, like, that rebellious thing is like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the store, or I'm gonna
Mhm.
go to the gas station to buy something, and then it was 3 or 4 hours back, and you just coming back home, and then your dad will say, I didn't know that the store or the 7-Eleven had popcorn, and you were just coming from the movies instead of
Yeah.
going to the store, that
Yeah,
type of thing.
exactly.
So I think it's really important. And then also, it's also the young adult too, which is really important that we don't suppress. And that's the part of our life when we're, our during our last year of teens, when we're 19, and then we transition into our 20s, and that's another part of, as life, that we need to make sure that we let that and not ignore the red flags, and stay too long, or love too hard, and learn from those
Mhm.
painful lessons, which are really going to guide you. That's the time that you either learn from your mistakes, or you learn by seeing what others are doing wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. Which is crazy to think that our parents were, or at least my parents, became parents at that young adult time of their lives. It's like, wow, you're now raising a kid and also trying to figure yourself out and trying to
Hmm.
figure out, whether you're going to go this route or that route.
Hmm.
Um, and you're still trying to, you're not even quite an adult yet, and that lasting impact that it has on them, and then obviously them raising kids, um, which I feel like because of that, they're constantly telling us, be better than us, make better
Hmm.
decisions, realize the consequences, and that some consequences last a lifetime. So
Hmm.
be smart about what you do.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it also too is, it's really important because that's the stage where you ask your questions and you start to reflect, does this make me happy?
Hmm.
Does this will keep me safe? So
Yeah,
are really good questions because it really is going to determine your future and the outcomes that that is going to come in the future for you.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and if you don't prepare yourself mentally, I feel like your dreams will be replaced by just having to pay bills. And, your curiosity will end up being replaced by fear. And your joy in doing things is just going to be replaced by being in
Hmm.
survival mode and just trying to
Yeah.
make it through because you didn't prepare yourself, or you thought to yourself, I'm going to go this route, maybe education or financially, and then you didn't listen to your instincts.
Hmm.
You maybe listen to your friends, and now you're in a situation that's maybe not where you want to be financially. And you're like, okay, well, can't turn back time. So I just have to keep going.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's
Yeah.
why maybe a lot of adults are not happy
Hmm.
because they're just stuck with the consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not only the consequences, but also the choices, the career choices, and even to a
Hmm.
point, the options that make and who do they choose, to become partners and because they're being imposed, they don't let him really choose and really feel in love, and it's more like you should be doing this makes more sense for you, and even things like having preference for certain things too as well. I mean, I just feel that kids these days get a lot of pressure that they have to choose certain things, and I can
Hmm.
tell. So it's no longer like, oh, I mean, they have to be open. It's just more like you have to do it, and you can tell the reaction of a kid at a really young age, like when they're 5 or 6, they don't want to do it. And kids are very
Yeah.
honest, so they don't lie.
Hmm.
And if you start seeing that they don't like you imposing them a certain preference or certain identity, they'll let you know. And I think that's the problem. As
Hmm.
we become adults, we suppress that, and then someone else molds it. And it's really important to not suppress our inner child, our
Yeah.
inner teenager, and our inner young adult.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times our parents maybe didn't know how to deal with kids having an opinion or saying, like, no, I don't want to do that, because the minute you would go against the parent, instead of the parents being like, okay, well, let's talk about this, why do you feel that way? Why are you not liking this? They would be quick to come up with
Hmm.
the nickname, the, like, you're so scared. I guess now it's considered maybe gaslighting. I don't know if that's
Yes.
what is gaslighting, which
Uh,
apparently our parents were really good at. They're the OG gaslighting influencers.
well, I think there's a difference sometimes when you're gaslighting. and then there's a difference when you're like trying to teach a lesson
Yeah.
and bring and impose discipline. And some parents did it just by making fun of you.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes I think we have blurred the boundaries so much that sometimes you cannot distinguish, one from the other, or you're just
Yeah.
afraid to not do it, even though you know that you might be right because you're like, I don't want people to, think the other way. And I think that's one of the issues. And then when we travel over the world, we find out that people don't think like us. They're different.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's kind of refreshing, and I think sometimes I feel that we're in this bubble that I think we need to travel more, even if it's where our parents are from, or or if we grow up outside of the country, we really need to go and visit because it's just kind of like a refreshing perspective of life that, our way,
For sure.
it doesn't mean it's the way of the entire world, and we're only
Yeah.
part of it, we're not the entire world.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. But even like
Um,
nicknames, like you were talking about nicknames. I remember
uh-huh.
nicknames like El Gordo, Chino, Flaco, La
Uh-huh.
Güera,
Fuera.
El Loco. Even nicknames like two of my brothers. One people call him El Plátano and the other one Iman, and I didn't know why. And when sometimes I asked because they're older than me, and I asked one of my uncles, is like, why you call my brother El Plátano? And it was said like, have you ever seen a straight banana? Siempre son chuecos. Your brother's very chueco, so you can't trust him. So that's why the name
I know,
El
dude.
Plata.
Our parents were good. I know their nicknames would like cut so deep sometimes like
Oh
that.
yes, yes, and
Like, dang, really? I didn't even know you had that in you.
yeah. Well, even one of my friends, like another example, one of my friends in Mexico before we came to the States, he had a speech impediment.
Oh,
So
I can
he
only
used to say,
imagine.
yeah, he used to say for everything, ¿para qué te enojas? Why do you get mad? But he couldn't say it. So he will say it, ¿pa qué te enojas? So people will, so he became the paquencle, because he couldn't say the word. So up to this day, everyone knows him by that, paquencle.
That's hilarious.
So, and
Which
then,
I feel like as, like our generation or the younger generation, that is the one thing that like the tough skin is the one thing that they don't have, that I feel like all of those
yeah,
nicknames,
yeah.
all of the yo mama jokes,
Oh, yeah.
like I feel like all of that was such a good way to toughen a kid's skin
Oh, yeah.
without being like, like
Yeah.
abusive. It was just more like fun and games,
Hmm.
like all of the nicknames, like, oh, flaca, pero están bien gordos,
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I do feel like I try to find ways of messing with my kids a little bit to toughen their skin a little bit, because I don't want them to be that kid that's just like overly sensitive and like, you can't take a joke, especially in
Yeah.
a Mexican household. It's like you need to have that tough skin where you can take a nickname and then throw one back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And another example too is one of my friends here when we came, and I went to high school, and he was also a recent immigrant like I was. And so we were hanging out, and so the conversation was like, what was the first word that you learned when you came to the States, and we all have different versions. And then when we got to him, he says like, well, answering the phones, I just heard hello. And then but the way he said it, we start laughing. And then he became el hello up to this point. Everyone knows him as el hello.
El
So,
alo.
yeah, because the way he said it was like, sounded so funny and so sarcastic the way he was saying it, but he was mispronouncing the word. So
Yeah.
everyone started calling him el alo, el alo, el alo, and then that's it.
It's stuck.
Yeah. So
Oh my god, it's yeah, it's too funny.
Yeah, and you know, and sometimes those nicknames we love, and sometimes they're labels, but you know, they shape you who we are. You know, sometimes because sometimes, and sometimes they don't, because you're really it's a reflection of probably what really your name should have been, and not the name that your parents
Hmm.
give you. You know, because like my hometown where I grew up, now you're gonna laugh about this, but when I was a little kid, apparently when I was learning how to speak, I will say for everything, uh yo ni quiero, yo ni sé. So I always started with that word, and then suddenly my family started calling me Johnny, and then I will get really mad because they were making fun of me. And then
Yeah.
you go to my hometown and no one knows me by my full name, and then you ask by my nickname, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, he lives over there. Or that's where his whole house from his parents are from.
Yeah.
So, and then when I came to the States, people just start calling me Dio, and then like, okay, so I guess that's my name here too.
You're
So,
like, "You're just calling me by my regular name?" Yeah, because you don't even question it anymore, you know?
no, no, no,
Like,
you
your
become
nickname
that.
is for the
Yeah.
youngest time, yeah, and then people start calling you by your regular name, and you're like, "Oh, thanks?"
Mm.
Like, why you gotta be so, official with my name?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I don't know if you had a nickname when you were growing up or
No,
when you were in
I
high school.
didn't, I didn't, it's funny. No, tampoco, I never had a nickname. I mean, unless I had one behind my back and no one ever told me,
Hmm.
which could be a possibility.
Yeah, yeah, that could be, that could be. And but yeah, that's you know, I think that's one of the things that the kids of this generation are missing, a lot of those things that are more traditional, but like you said, they really shape you to have character and to
Mhm.
stand up, you know, and
Yeah,
to also, you know, defend yourself. I think and it's a
yeah.
critical, it's a critical skill. I mean, because that's one of the things that I admire about kids in Mexico. I can stop a 7-year old or 8-year old
Mhm.
and have a conversation with him or with her,
Yeah,
and it could be about anything. Yes, their language might be
yeah,
simple, but I can have a conversation about, did you saw the latest movie? How was the weather? Are you going to school?
yeah,
And they will answer you like a normal conversation. A kid
yeah.
here, you ask him that, not all kids, but the majority, it's just a really yes, no, and they really don't want to talk. And I think that's one of the skills that we're losing in this country, and because we're
Mhm.
molding the children to be something that they're not. And sometimes society has these expectations, and the curiosity is not there, and and then when they become adults,
Yeah.
they're suppressing those personalities, like the inner child, the inner teenager, and the inner young adult, and that could lead to
Yeah,
a lot of problems.
yeah, 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 I totally agree with all of that. I feel like we need to be, we need to clown on our kids more.
Hmm. Yes.
We need to give them nicknames and, toughen them up a little bit more.
Oh yes, yes, yes,
And
yes.
also teach them, but then it's like the minute they say like, "No, I don't like it," it's like, "Okay, well, I guess we have to respect what they say and not call them by that." So that nickname will only last like an hour.
Well, like my daughters, whenever like they all, I we always give them nicknames like Yaretsi, we'll call him Yare, and then
Uh-huh.
Citlali Lali, and they were always like, why do you guys choose this nickname? So when we went to Mexico, when they were kids, they didn't notice that, but it got to the point when they started in their early teens and they start seeing what other kids had their nicknames. They One day the oldest told me like, "Thank you, Papa. You didn't give me those nicknames that those other kids have, like El Renco."
Yeah.
And one of the ones that cracked her up, it was this kid in the neighborhood that I grew up. We went to the town for the first time, and then they
Mhm.
start playing with the kids, and then it's like, why do they call that kid El Dollar? And I was like, oh God, should I tell her or not? And she was persistent. It's like, because his one feet is shorter than the other one, so he keeps going up and down, and the dollar goes up and down in value. So that's why probably they nickname him El Dollar. So
Dude, I'm telling you, these like these parents, they go deep with the kid with the cuts.
yes. So now you
Oh
see
my
the
god.
kid, he's like 20 and everyone calls him El Dollar. So he's still like,
Yeah, he's stuck for life.
yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah. But
That's funny.
no, yeah, but I think the bottom line is to, because we're growing isn't something that we're not, or we
Hmm.
should, or it shouldn't be a limitation really of what we should be.
Yeah,
And you shouldn't stop being yourself. And also it's never late to become something. When I still
yeah,
remember what one of my grandparents used to say, my grandfather Andres used to say that if you stop and if you retire, you expire. So his point was like, even if you retire, you still need to do something
yeah,
and find something to do, because otherwise it's not
yeah,
going to be good for you. And I think that's
yeah,
part of it, that you let someone else or society sometimes mold you, and you stop being your true self. And it's never late, like if you want to do
hmm,
something that you always want to do it, and now you are 70 or 80 years old but you're healthy, that doesn't mean you cannot do it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing it. And same thing, if you're 10 years old and you're really into like sports or art and you really want to do it, why not? You probably
yeah,
you end up being really good at it. If you don't try and if you don't know, how do you even know if you really have the potential or not? And I think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a
I think
risk when we lose
for sure.
ourselves and
Yes.
not being ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's always important to keep asking yourself, like, who are you right now? And maybe not only who are you, but do you like the person that you are?
Hmm.
What do you wish you could change? And then make those changes so that you're not
Hmm.
a prisoner of your past decisions or of the person who you think you are or the person who other people think you are. Like even if you're going to get clowned for all of a sudden becoming a vegan, it's like if that's what you feel in your heart that now,
Hmm.
at the age of whatever, you're going to become vegan, then be vegan. Even if they're going to clown you about it, then like ahí viene la vaca, it's like you're
Yeah.
going to start getting named all
Yeah.
these, it's like just take it and just go with it.
But the bottom line is that regardless of what you do, people are still going to make fun of you. So, I mean, you're never
For
going to
sure.
please anyone.
Yeah.
So, if you eat
Yeah.
meat, they're going to call you, ahí viene el lobo, ahí viene la loba, because he always eats meat.
Yeah.
If you don't eat meat, then yeah, they're going to be calling you la vaca or el toro. So,
Yeah.
it's never ends. So, I think it's just
Yeah.
really do not let other ones be the architect of your future. Be your own architect, and just
Mhm.
decide what you
Yeah,
want to
exactly.
do. And really the challenge is just not to fake become something else, not to perform, not to impress, but really to choose very
Mhm.
consciously who you really want to be, and what you decide to be, even if it scares you, because that's the other thing too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it scares you, but or you're afraid to disappoint anyone, but the reality, that's suppressing the inner child, because when you were a little kid, when you were learning how to walk, you will fell on the ground, cry, hurt yourself, but stand up, didn't
Mhm.
give up, and until you start walking. So, and sometimes we forget that sometimes you need to hurt yourself and not be afraid, because that's the only thing you're going to be
Yeah.
able to accomplish something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's the only way that you grow as a person, right? Is making mistakes, realizing those mistakes, being self-aware. I think not enough people are self-aware. Be
Mhm.
self-aware and realize like, you know what, I didn't like how that made me feel or I felt really good after, going down this path of trying something different. So I think I'm going to do that more often.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of people should go out on a limb and, give it a try. Whatever it is that's in the back of your mind that you're like, I really want to try
Mhm.
this. Just try it. I mean,
Mhm.
what's the worst that could happen, really?
Mhm. Yeah, no, totally. And really the bottom line here and the reflection here is it's becoming someone you stop yourself from being or the
Hmm.
potential you were destined to have and not let other ones really shape you, and just be really, really
Yeah.
who you are, because um, sometimes cancel culture says like you shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't be expressing that. But I just feel that sometimes when we were growing up, a lot of those things that they're talking about, people accept them. It's just they were not promoting it, but people were like really considerate, really respectful of it, and just
Hmm.
things are becoming so out of blown out of the proportions that it's becoming like more like a fanatism, kind of like when you're a fanatic,
Hmm.
religious
Yeah.
fanatic or cult fanatic or sports fanatic, like you no longer a fan but you're a fanatic of a team, and you become violent.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the risks of these days, and that's why it's important to ask ourselves, who are you, and making sure that you don't suppress your inner child,
Yeah.
your inner teenager, your inner young adult, and just be yourself. And it's okay to say
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
if you don't agree with it.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is the perfect way to end the episode is,
Yes.
just challenge yourself to be even different, better,
Hmm.
just to try something different, try something that maybe you wouldn't have thought of doing, or too shy to try it. It's like just try it anyway. And maybe just don't tell anybody if you're that embarrassed. you
Hmm.
know?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And but yeah, this is a really great way to end the show, and just excited. I mean, excited to for the next episode next week, and
Yes.
inviting everyone to sink in again and to join us and log in. We are going to have like a really great show for you, and really, don't want to sound like a parrot, but once again, it's okay to ask yourself, who are you? It's a good way to
Yeah.
reflect about your past, your present, your future, and see where explore the potential that you still have, and see where life can still take you, and don't limit yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And we'll see if next week if we have budget for two people's backgrounds instead of just
Yes,
one.
correct. Yeah, yes. And you can see I have the keys there in case ice comes, I can
In
lock the
case you need to make a
door.
quick
Yeah.
exit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
All right, so that's a wrap. So
All right.
good to see you, and we'll
Yes.
we'll we'll log in
We'll see
again
you. We'll
next
see you on
week.
the next one. All right.
Yes.